Hello and welcome to Cablevision's Meet the Lead. I'm Alfred Bundy. The mayor of the fourth largest city in the state has been openly critical of both the governor and the legislature for not coming together to find real solution to help financially strapped cities. But wait, he's not just going to point a finger, he has some ideas of his own. Please welcome our special guest, the mayor of the great city of Elizabeth, Chris Bollwage. Welcome back to Meet the Leaders.
Al, it's good to see you.
Now, you know, the last time I saw you was actually at the League of Municipality Convention, an event that the governor did not attend. Is the league still relevant for elected officials, and should the governor have been there?
You know, I'm a past president of the League of Municipalities in 2002, and the seminars that the league has, as well as continuing education credits, is extremely important for the members of this state government, whether it be mayors, city council people, purchasing agents. Historically, the governor has always attended the Thursday lunch and has spoken about upcoming issues, the budget, and how it's going to affect municipalities. The governor doesn't really have any great news to deliver to mayors, so when the Republican Governors Association was scheduled in San Diego at the same time, I think Governor Christie chose the easy way out and said, well, I have nothing good to say to the mayors, so why stay in the state? I might as well go to San Diego. San Diego ain't a bad place to visit either in the middle of November. So,
Speaking of the governor, do we understand correctly that when you were surveyed by the Star-Ledger recently in an article that you gave the governor a C-?
I did, you know, and it was kind of funny when the reporter called my house. My daughter, who's 10 years old, was listening to the phone call, and she said, Daddy, give him an F. Daddy, give him an F. So, you know, and here's somebody who's 10 years old going to a Catholic grammar school. But, you know, I thought an F was a bit strong because he's changed the dialogue in New Jersey. I don't know whether it's for the positive or the negative. That's going to remain to be seen. But clearly his ability to be a bully and the way he comes across to an average New Jersey. I mean, when he called that guy up on stage the other day, the guy only weighs 165 pounds, and Chris Christie's a little bigger than that. And then he's got 4 state troopers standing behind him. And then he shouts the guy down, and he has the state troopers escort him off the stage in Parsippany. I just found that extremely demeaning to all of New Jersey.
Yeah, actually, I know that's getting a lot of YouTube coverage, so a lot of people have been looking at that. But let's move on a little bit and talk more about you being also critical of the Democrats for not dealing with the toolkit. What do you think is going on there?
Well, you know, it's interesting because the toolkit does nothing to help mayors. I mean,
nothing?
Nothing. I mean, not in 2011. Let me be clear about that. In 2011, the toolkit serves absolutely no purpose to hold down property taxes. The toolkit, when you talk about arbitration reform and you talk about civil service reform, then mayors will have the ability to plan for a longer period of time. But there's no magic pill here in this toolkit that's going to restrict property tax increases in 2011. Because of the cap that was put in place by this legislature and this governor on the July 4th weekend of this year, what'll happen is, and you're seeing it already, you're going to see massive layoffs of emergency personnel. You're going to see cutback in services because the cap and the toolkit clearly don't work together. If you want to reduce property taxes, you need to do pension reform and health care reform. And I put forth some proposals on that idea, but as of this date, they haven't received a fair hearing.
Where did you send your proposals, and give us a little bit more detail about the proposal?
Well, it's been in verbal conversations with legislators, and I've talked with it on other talk shows. What has to happen is right now police and firemen pay 18.5% towards, the municipality pays 18.5% towards a policeman and fireman's pension. The policemen and firemen pay 8% towards their pension. So this binding arbitration bill that they're doing where they're going to cap the salary increases at 2%, you know, it really sounds good to the public, but it doesn't get at the core of the problem. And the core of the problem is pension and health care. When health care rises millions of dollars every year, what I proposed is if policemen and firemen want to continue a very lucrative pension system, then we need to flip those contributions. Policemen have to start paying paying more into the pension system. Instead of 8.5% of their salary, it needs to grow to 10% in 1 year and then 12% the following year, and then get up to 18%. And as the policemen are paying more, the city's share will get reduced. It maintains the health of the pension system. It also takes the burden off of the taxpayers, and it increases the fair share of a policeman.
How does this plan compare to the private sector?
The public sector pensions are far better than any of the private sector. And one of the reasons the public sector pensions are very lucrative is because in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, policemen and firemen were not making a lot of money. And they were actually, salaries were lower than what the private sector was making. So in order to entice folks into the job of police and fire, where they're risking their lives, they gave them a lucrative pension system, health care, if you maintained. But through collective bargaining and through the negotiations process of the 80s and the 90s, police and fire salaries have risen where they now rank higher than what's going on in the private sector, plus the pensions.
Mayor, I must ask, though, do you need the state legislature to help you, or is this something that you can handle at the local level through negotiations?
It cannot be handled at the local level through negotiations because it's state law in the pension system that's 18.5% and 8%. Health care was just handled on the state level where they mandated all employees will have to give 1.5% of their salary towards health care. A fairer way to do that would be to make employees pay a percentage of their health care plan. Because if you're making $30,000 a year and you have to pay 1.5% of your salary towards health care, and you're making $150,000 a year, where some cops and firemen are, and pay a 1.5% of your salary, clearly it's a more difficult burden on the...
And you're actually describing a percentage of the plan, not your salary. But technically, this is also wrapped up in what we would call givebacks, which has not really been always well received, but in some places, people are making headways with givebacks. Am I correct?
Well, we did in the city of Elizabeth. I mean, we did a 5-year contract with the city hall and the police and fire that nets out to 1.4% over the life of that contract, with a 0 in the first year, with a 1.5% give back on health care. So all of the unions in the city of Elizabeth are in effect tied up to the end of 2014. And so anything they're doing now, I mean, you know, the sick leave payout at $15,000 is a maximum. City of Elizabeth, it's already $10,000. It's lower than that. So anything that the state and the legislature has done is clearly not beneficial to the residents of Elizabeth, and really not beneficial to most of the state. And in 2011, you'll see no changes. You're still going to see property tax increases, but coupled with those property tax increases, you're going to see massive layoffs and cutback of services.
So you were kind of ahead of the curve compared to what some of these other cities are struggling with right now.
Well, one of the things is we had a very cooperative labor negotiation session during 2009 and 2010. And it was a very upfront saying, hey, in this recession, the days of 3% raises or 4% raises are over. And you have to recognize that there's a new sheriff in Trenton. And this governor has clearly made it a focus point of attacking civil service workers, policemen, firemen, and teachers. There's a better way to do this, and that's bringing the teachers union, the policeman union, fireman union into your office, telling them that there has to be no more. But just going on YouTube and doing press releases and shouting at people, that's going to work in New Jersey for a while, but it's going to wear thin.
Now, is that what Newark failed to do? It sounds like to me.
Well, I can't compare my city to the city of Newark, and I'm not the mayor of Newark, and so therefore I don't know the intricacies of what Mayor Booker does with the unions.
Now, you're the first one who really has kind of been able to frame the toolkit sounding a little bit more like a press spin to try to help people believe it's something that it's not. Now, the 2% is now law. As far as you're concerned, should we have got the toolkit first, or should we have got the cap first?
The toolkit had to move first, or something similar. The toolkit had to move first before the cap. I mean, because what's happened here is the cap is really bad public policy at 2%. It's workable at 3%. It's workable at 4%. But 2%, it's just not workable. Because, you know, there's a misperception among the folks in New Jersey. Your property taxes are not going to be restricted at 2%, which is what the governor and the legislature have tried to sell. It is 2% of your property tax levy. The city of Elizabeth's total budget is $210 million. The property tax levy is $110 million. We still spend another $100 million on the purchasing of equipment. We get grants in from the state government and federal government. We have other revenue that comes in that is not property taxes. So the $110 million is subject to the 2% property tax levy, which means we can only raise it 2% on the $110 million. There's still another whole $100 million out there that when you purchase fire trucks and hammers and everything else, gasoline, utilities that are not subject to that 2%. And that's where the problems are caused, because they're all going to be in that, and it's just not enough resources. I've said in the Star Ledger, Alan, I don't mean to interrupt, but I said in the Star Ledger that I'm sorry, he may think he might want to be. Governor Christie's economic policies are going to lead the cities of New Jersey back to the 1960s, when there was no investment in education, no investment in infrastructure, and no investment in law enforcement and security personnel.
Now, Mayor, you got a lot of great ideas here, and there are some rumors and talk that you might be making a run for the governor's office. Any truth to that?
No, I'm the mayor of the city of Elizabeth, the fourth largest city. I enjoy my job tremendously. My next election is in 2012. I've been getting involved in statewide policy for probably one of the first times in my career, for the simple reason is I'm watching a governor and a legislature not only propose but adopt things that are setting the cities of New Jersey backwards. The governor is extremely close to Haley Barbour, the governor in Mississippi. I don't want to see New Jersey turn out to be Mississippi, where there's two classes, a very wealthy class and a very poor class. There's a strong middle class here in New Jersey, and clearly the economic policies are ignoring the middle class of New Jersey.
So you feel compelled to speak out?
Somebody has to speak out, because the Democrats in the legislature are not speaking out. There's very little leadership in the Democratic Party in the state of New Jersey at the current time. I'm just hopeful that my voice will create leadership in the Democratic Assembly and Senate.
Now, you still have to deal with these new restrictions that have been put in by the state. What type of cuts are you dealing with in the city of Elizabeth based on state aid?
We've cut way back on overtime is one area that we've done it. We're looking at the street lighting system by changing the street lights from 80 to 40 and lowering the wattage and going to LED, and that will save a couple of $100,000. We reworked a garbage deal in our city with the Union County Utilities Authority that'll save $800,000. The state's been very cooperative in the effort on health care reform in the area where if people are having two policies, they're now only allowed one policy, so that's going to save another $800,000. So we've cut, our gap is about $10 million, and we were able to save, going into next year's budget, probably be a little more than $2 million. There's still an $8 million hole that we're going to have to work with the unions moving forward. And if the policies in the state don't change, then we're going to either see a reduction in police and fire through attrition or through furloughs or some other mechanism. What we're going to offer the police unions is, and the fire unions, is if they leave by June 1st, that they'll be able to take any accrued money that they've had all at once. Wow. Some people who have been on the force for 30, 35 years have accrued money of $100,000, $120,000. And we'll pay them out at once rather than have them work that off the back end of their years before they retire. And under the state law, we're allowed to do that. We'll be allowed to bond the money. So that'll be able to get some people off the payroll. But in the meantime, it still weakens our ability to respond to services.
Now, the governor also took a bite out of your well-known, famous Urban Enterprise Zone program. Where does that currently stand?
Not only that, he also removed $5 million from state aid to us this year in last year's budget. And that's, you still got to figure out how to do that within the cap. You take $5 million out, so that's $5 million less that you can raise under the 2% cap. It's an unfair mathematical equation. The Urban Enterprise Zone, which has benefited 33 municipalities throughout the state, has taken some severe hits, but not only by Governor Christie. Governor Corzine and his administration changed the rules during his tenure that adversely impacted urban enterprise zones. We have told the folks in Trenton that if you want to do enforcement for zones or for businesses that are not following the rules, then do the enforcement. But changing the legislation is extremely ineffective, and it's hurting economic and growth development. And the urban enterprise zones are important for economic development in urban communities.
We're going to take a break, Mayor. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Mayor Chris Bollwage.